Morning, guys. One of the most important things you're going to need on if you're off gridding or farming, if you're doing a hobby farm, you like most people I speak to, they're not going to be a full blown farmer. They're going to be classed as more so a hobby farm. You can transfer that over to a productive farm where you can get tax benefits from it, but you've got to need a couple of years proof for that, tax wise. Now, I was going to discuss some of the most important animals to have on it besides your dog and cat. Cats do a lot of damage. I'm going to say that. Cats do a lot of damage to local wildlife. Been there, done that. Dogs, not as much damage, but they're not as big rodent hunters. Probably your chooks, your poultry, your chooks, your geese, your ducks. Now look into what you want eggs for, because duck and goose eggs are a lot more rich in protein, used for different things, possibly better cake making, and chooks are more edible eggs. First thing you're going to have to do is make sure your structure's a good one. I've seen people get chooks and have these really weak, flabby structures. By about a month, most of your chooks are gone because the fox gets in and gets them. So, strong structure. Second, which I find really important, is make sure your chook is very resilient to disease. So, you've got to try to get a chook that hasn't been tampered with for egg laying, all right? And that's your main chook, because the more tampered your chook has been by humans in a laboratory, you put it out in the wild, nature kills it. They're not as resilient to diseases, and that's just the way it is, guys. Now, but what I'm saying is, you get your more resilient chooks, like I've got a small list here, like Fayumis, Noilas, Coroilas, right? It's chooks you probably haven't heard of, most people haven't heard of before. And research it on Google. Get your chooks that have been around for a hell of a long time. There's a reason they've been around for a hell of a long time. You get those chooks, you put them in a separate cage, because the thing with those chooks is they don't lay as much egg. See? Now you get your other chooks like your black Australorps, your Rhode Island Reds. They've already been created to give eggs. Right? Now you can get your Isa Browns also. They're a big egg layer. They're one of the big chooks they use in Australia. But they're not as disease resilient as your others. We've got Californian leghorns. I call them seagulls because honestly they're very flighty birds. Like you'll see them sitting on top of your roof. If the hawks and the eagles aren't around, they still get taken, but they can defend themselves with flying up on top of a fence or something a lot quicker. And they give us good egg laying abilities. Now, egg laying, it doesn't last long for a chook, maybe 1.5 years, I think it is, to have a peak egg layer. I don't kill my chooks like that. Once you've had them for a while, they're not really good eating. You want your young chooks are good for eating. Your younger, large. Same with goats. You don't have a 7-year-old goat and say, that's going to taste nice. Yeah, you want your younger goat. That's when you got the best meat. But like I said, chooks are the main one. I'd throw a few turkeys in there. Meat, I would probably head down towards the goats and the sheep. You could use sheep for dairy too. Sheep and goats for dairy. My friend's got goats. And they're the friendliest things. So you want friendly dairy goats or sheep, because they're a lot easier to handle when you're milking. So rear them from young. That way they'll always come to you. My friend's goats, they come to him like dogs. They're like his pets. He doesn't get rid of them either. He pretty much, once they come onto the farm, they live on the farm, they retire on the farm. They die on the farm, they get buried on the farm. Unless you've got meat animals, possibly pigs and that. But this channel's always been more so towards the group and tribal mentality, because speaking to my mum, who was brought up in old days Croatia on the farms, she said the community always stuck together. She said, she goes, we had chicken diseases then too, and they'd wipe out a whole colony, a whole farmstead would have all its chooks wiped out. She goes, the funny thing was, the farm next door didn't, and I was always curious, what sort of chooks did they have? All right, what sort of chooks did your neighbour have? What sort of chooks did you? But she didn't know. She was only a young kid at that stage, so she didn't take much notice of it either. But just a general conversation about what sort of livestock you put on your farm, you know what I mean? And if you've got a bigger farm, you could possibly put few little homesteads on it. Doesn't mean you have to be in each other's pockets. A lot of people go off-gridding to be just left the hell alone, you know, from this crazy world we have today. But you could have 1,000-acre property, and you can pick up 1,000 acres in Australia for a decent price. America, hell of a lot better, a lot cheaper. 1,000 acres for a lot cheaper. I've been looking at American prices, how much the Yanks pay, and wow, they're paying pretty cheap prices over there. Mind you, you move into some of these areas, not much employment. So you literally got to buy out the farm. You've got to make your employment. The chooks are good too. You can actually stock up on the eggs, drive them you can follow farmers markets around. Eggs are always a big seller. And so are the goose eggs, the duck eggs. Separate them all, because like I said, they've got different usages. So I'd have to look into it. Google what a duck egg's used for, what a goose egg's used for. You'll notice they're a lot more richer in protein than chook eggs. Taste a bit different too, but I believe they're sometimes used in cake making and all that because of their size, the amount of yolk and everything they give you. And ducks are okay. Ducks are funny animals. But the other thing is, when you make a chicken pen, like I said it before, when you make a chicken pen, make it ridiculously fox proof. You might have to dig a few wires in, make a rockery on the outside of the mesh or something, you know. So have a think about it. Talk to people that have done it. Right? Talk to people that have done it and take it from there. I always let my chooks free run too. They'll free run all day. At night, they'll come in. I close everything. Like, I'll open up their pen. They come out. They love it. They just patrol outside, just dig and do whatever. What they will do, though, they'll find a place to lay eggs, which you're going to have to find, right? You're going to have to find it outside. So don't worry too much. The other thing you don't worry too much about are the eggs off. Because trust me, when you open that egg, you're going to know if it's off or if it's a good egg. You're going to know through it pretty quick. And eggs, when they come out, they've got a protective covering on them. And it's really resilient. Really resilient. So don't worry, a day or two old egg outside, not much of a disaster. It'll still be okay. But if it's not okay, like I said, once you open that egg, boy, are you going to find out, because they really go off. Anyway, that was today's chat. And we will chat again soon. All right, guys, take care. See you later.